everyone, my name is Cindy and I am the English instructor at IB The Top. And today in this video, I'll be explaining to you guys about my classes, particularly pertaining to the classes that will be held during the school weeks as well as breaks, including summer as well as winter. And so all explanations, all require a good structure. So in this particular video, we're going to follow the 5W1H structure where I go over the what, when, where, how, who, and so on. So a little bit before that, I guess I have to introduce to you guys a little bit about who I am. And so with my education in the United States, I am currently teaching English at IB The Top, and over the course of the years that I've been working with IB The Top, I've had over 1,000 years of annual teaching. I'm currently still teaching, and in addition to that, I've been filming and now have completed the whole series for our Paper 1, Paper 2, as well as the individual oral for our online lectures and study notes. Okay, so with that small introduction with who I am, let's now go into your goals and also my goals when it comes to studying together for IB English. And so it's important for us to break this down by grades because whoever you're watching, I'm sure you're either in your 9th and 10th grade year, your 11th grade year, or even your 12th grade year. And so if you were to study with me together, our class school would look something like this. So if you are in pre-IB, which means you're probably in 9th grade or 10th grade, our goal would be first to build that comprehension skills. So later on in your years, it's important for you to really understand, okay, if I get a text, am I really understanding this well? So comprehension skills, really important, including both literary and non-literary. We also want to build a lot of vocabulary and sentence structures. So for us, it would be important for you to practice with utilizing various vocabularies as well as exploring and experimenting with different sentence structures that you will eventually get really used to. And last but not least, for us, we won't be really practicing with a lot of full essays because even at school, you probably won't be writing full essays that much. And so what we will be doing, particularly in our classes together, is completing an outline for what the full essay would look like potentially. But primarily, we will be focusing on writing paragraphs. And a lot of you may know this as your peel paragraph. Okay? And when it comes to DP1, now we've officially started DP. You're probably now a little bit more used to your Paper 1, Paper 2s. And so what we will be doing there is we will deepen our skills. So whatever we have established from our pre-DP classes together, we now want to actually deepen those skills, specifically pertaining to our critical thinking as well as analytical skills, because all of our assessments for IB English are analytical. And we also want to learn to organize essays with a logical flow. I can't emphasize this enough. A lot of the students, they struggle with structuring their essays, so that's what we will be working on. And then we also do a lot of practical practice because, our grades are coming from the essay that you write, right? So we want to get a lot of practical practice. In the beginning, we'll start with partial writings because I feel like it's a little bit unfair for you to have to write a full essay when you just graduated from your pre-IB years. But eventually, we will get to our full essay writing. And so that's what you can expect with your classes with me. And last but not least, in our final year of DP2, with our exams coming up, we want to now solidify all the skills that we've learned from the beginning of high school all the way until your DP2 years. And so what do we do now? It's all about precision, okay? And so here, formulating sophisticated arguments and writing with precision. Now we have to practice in a timed setting. You don't really have all the time in the world. And so rather than focusing on, particularly the ideas, we want to make sure that all the ideas that you know how to express, it is being communicated through the essay that you write. So how do we do that? We prepare that with using a lot of the past IB exam papers. And so if you're in your DP2 years, in your classes with me, we'll probably go over a bunch of Paper 2 exams, as well as Paper 1. And ultimately, it's all about the refinement. So you don't want to just write your first draft and then get that done and over with, have your grade, and be like, okay, let me move on to my next essay. It's all about making it yours, right? You need to know where you need to improve. You need to know how you can improve. So we will do a lot of revision in our classes together if you're in your DP2. Okay, so with that, then you might question, okay, but what does the class actually look like when I'm in the class with you, or when I'm taking classes with you? And so a quick overview of my classes, as you can see on the very top writing there, discussion and essay-based class designed for real progress. So there's a lot of discussion happening in my classes. You won't really come to class and have a day where you don't talk at all. Most of the time, we'll look at a text, I'll have you analyze it on your own, and then you'll probably engage in some kind of class discussion with your peers in addition to me. And then we also do a little bit of writing. So we're essentially doing all aspects of the components that you would need to grow your skills for. Okay, but something important about this is that when we do a lot of frequent writings, you do always receive feedback. And I think that's one of the greatest benefits of this class, where you're receiving feedback for some of the things that you're writing. And that's something that you can't really do on your own, without any kind of instructor, right? And then, of course, like I've mentioned earlier, there are online resources available for you. We have online lectures, online notes that you can use. And we also use Google Classroom, which I'll get into later in our video. And it's also 100% in English. So of course, when I throw in jokes here and there, we might use a little bit of Korean. But in terms of delivering the content, of course, it's English class. So it's going to be 100% spoken in English. And the second to last bullet point is also, I think, one of the greatest advantages of our English class here. It is actually a very small class, even though it's a group class. So compared to other subjects where there might be like 12 students or even more than that, it's capped to 8 students maximum. And so even when we're in this environment where we're having discussions, it's going to be a very closed, very tight community of students. And you'll eventually get closer to other students, but you also have a lot of opportunity to share your ideas instead of having to wait for 10 other students to share their thoughts. And last but not least, I think one of the greatest points about my class is the fact that it's very enjoyable and very fun. And so I want you to also bring in that energy to my classes. And so something about the feedback-based learning, like I mentioned, for English, it's important for you to get a lot of feedback. And I think that's something that makes this subject really hard to study on your own, right? As you can probably tell from the way you've been preparing for your English exams at school, a lot of the students say that I don't really know how to prepare. Like, is there even a way to prepare? And honestly speaking, if you don't take any classes where you have a professional instructor, it's always going to be hard to prepare on your own, since no one's really giving you feedback and you don't really know whether you did well or not. And so for us, I personally give feedback to students, especially during our class time. I also have a TA with me who grades essays, who also helps me give you feedback, okay? And so we'll have that, and particularly during our summer and winter vacation classes, you will always get 3 homework per week, okay? We meet Monday to Friday. We get 3 homework per week, so you have homework every other day. And you will have a mock exam every week, okay? So those are classes where we meet really, really frequently, and we switch units every week. So it's important for you to really test those skills before we move on. During the semester, it's a little bit different because we only meet once a week due to, of course, your schedule and also mine. We only meet once a week, which means that homework will be given out only once a week so that you can, accommodate the workload, the course load that you have for other subjects as well as other classes. That also means the weekly exams that we have will be given out every month. So for our semester classes, we switch units every month instead of every week. And so that's why we would test you on the skills that you have learned at the end of every month. Okay, and so the next part is, okay, then what do we really need to grow our skills for, right? A lot of you, I don't think at school probably get, taught about this particular aspect. Here, English is composed of 4 different parts, I would say, starting with, of course, the reading part and the comprehension. So when you get a text for paper 1 or paper 2, it's always important that you actually understand what you're reading. If we don't have that foundation, it's hard for you to move on to the next step. So once we have that comprehension skill figured out, then we want to go into our analysis, and that's where we learn how to take active notes, right? We want to be active note takers, and so we'll be developing those skills there. And after we've analyzed some stuff, we need to do a little bit of both, which involves the speaking part of it and the writing part of it, because for English, we are being tested on both, which is the essay part as well as the individual oral. So if you're someone who's very confident with speaking, that probably means you want to focus a little bit more on your writing, or you want to refine your speaking skills. On the other hand, if you're someone who's more comfortable writing, you still need to practice speaking, so that's why we'll do a little bit of both in our classes together. And so the amount that we dedicate for each step of our balanced learning model depends on your grade. Obviously, if you're in pre-DP, we'll be spending a little bit more time covering that comprehension. Did you actually understand some stuff? If you are in DP2, there's already a very high expectation that you did already understand the components that we are talking about. So now it's a matter of, okay, then are you able to really deliver that? Okay, are you able to analyze that in depth? And so as you can see from the chart here, summer, fall, winter, spring, those classes look a little bit different in terms of the text that we cover, the text type for paper 1s, as well as the literary books that we cover for paper 2, but also the parts of the balanced learning model that we will be focusing on, okay? And so for paper 1, as we can see from our pie chart here, it looks definitely a little bit different depending on the grade. For non-literary text, we have both, visual and as well as text-heavy. Regardless, if you're in your pre-DP years, we do a little bit of everything, as you can tell from the very almost equally dispersed sort of colors in the pie chart. But as we progress through DP1, you'll see that we actually see a significant decrease in the number of comprehension. Instead, there's a significant increase in our writing. And DP1 is the year when you really need to figure out, okay, what's my writing style? How do I actually compose a full essay, right? So, of course, analysis is important, but the writing part becomes way more important for you to focus on. And DP2, you might be like, that's interesting. Why do I see a decrease in the writing component of the pie chart for DP2 when we should be writing even more? Well, for DP2, we are writing a lot more. We're writing full essays instead of partial essays. But it's a matter of, okay, but can we make our essay really look really different from everyone else's, right? And so that's why we need to dedicate a lot of time on our analysis, right? We still want to talk through the things that we're seeing here. And of course, for homework, you'll always have full essay writings to do, which is why we're spending relatively less time doing the write-up in class. Okay? For paper 2, literary works. This looks really different depending on the grade you are in. For pre-DP, of course, you'll still have text that you're covering at school, but regardless of that, we're going to expose you to a lot of different genres. So we'll be reading plays, we'll be reading novels, plays by maybe Ibsen, maybe by Shakespeare. It really depends. But there's constantly an alternation between the weeks or the days or months when we cover paper 1 versus paper 2. And for DP1, it gets a little bit trickier because you now have the official text that you need to use for your IB exam, but we still want to practice, right? So what happens is for DP1, during our summer course, we actually go over Shakespeare's work, right? Which I know not a lot of people are fond of, but still, it is considered one of the greatest texts and also one of the most difficult texts, which is why we're covering it together. But from that point onwards, we focus mostly on the text that you've studied at school, and you might be like, how does that work? Usually, the feedbacks are very personal, so we go over the general things that you would need to incorporate into your essay, but when it comes to the actual write-up part, you use the text that you've studied at school. And DP2, we don't really do any of other text together, apart from the text that you've studied at school. So again, it just kind of pertains to what are the texts that you have studied at school. So for the individual oral as well, this is going to be really important for pre-DP students as well as DP1 students. DP2, maybe if you haven't really finished your individual oral before you ended your DP1. We will be having mock recording. So it's not just, okay, let's prepare a script together, or let's prepare ideas together. Before you go into your presentation, I'm going to have you record your own audio so that I can give you feedback on, oh, hey, like you need to pronounce these words well, you need to slow down your pacing, or you need to enunciate certain sentences a little better, right? So there's practical advice being given to you based on the way you present, not just the content itself. And we also have a bunch of scripts and sample videos that we can provide to you, which as you can see here are all delivered by me. And so I gave you different various ways that you can structure your write-up, but also the different examples that you can look and also kind of see whether you can structure yours in a similar way or whether there are some parts that you can learn from it. And also, building and writing fluency. What happens here is, in the beginning, I did mention about our weekly or monthly exams, right? So what happens is, after we learn everything together, you take this test in a timed setting. So everything that we did in class, mostly I give you enough time to write the things that I've asked you to. During this mock exam, you get an unseen text type. So it's something that you haven't seen before. If it's a paper 1, for a paper 2, it's a prompt that you haven't seen before. And you'll basically just write up your own essay. And as you can see from the images here, most of the time the essays are going to be handwritten to mock and mimic the actual test setting. And so here, as we can see, it's a very year-round learning journey. So going back to the chart that we've talked about, there's constantly a progression. So it just doesn't end with your DP, pre-DP years, and you're like, there's nothing for me to do anymore. There's always a higher level of advancement that you can go up to. So essentially, it's a full year process, and it's not just that 1 year. It's literally all of your years during high school up until the point where you take your IB exam, okay? So in total, you'll meet with me probably for the summer for 4 weeks every single day from Monday to Friday. And then for fall, we'll meet 15 weeks. Same thing for spring, we'll meet 15 weeks because that's the course of your semester. And then in the middle, our winter course, we'll be meeting for 3 weeks every day of the week from Monday to Friday. Okay? And so you might be wondering, okay, but how? Where is this conducted? Where do we have classes? We use Zoom. So here, as you can see, there are a lot of students who join through Zoom. In a way, it's actually convenient for me to share information on Zoom. And so I'll be having a prompter up. You know, I could have my screen up and annotate with you, share ideas with you. You'll also be able to hear other people. And so it is a very interactive course, even though it is being conducted on Zoom. And we do have also a digital whiteboard system where we, you know, kind of have everyone also kind of input their ideas into the whiteboard. And so, a lot of students probably used a Google Classroom before, either for school or maybe for some other class. We too use a Google Classroom. It's just one of the most efficient ways to deliver information and also share materials with students. And so it is a very optimized sharing system of assignments, resources, feedback. A lot of you are probably used to using Google Document as well. And when we think about efficiency, practicality, it's best for us to give you feedback through a Google Doc. Of course, if you're someone who uses Words, you can still upload your assignment that way. But in terms of a system that we're using, we do use Google Classroom. And so this will wrap up a very quick overview of what my classes would look like. In the beginning, everyone might feel like I'm not really prepared for the years to come. I just don't know how to prepare for IB English. But as you can tell from the previous slides, we do have a very systemic process of preparing you up until the day you would be preparing for your IB exam. So don't worry, if you take classes with me, you will be more than ready to take your exam. So until I see you in my classes together, good luck at school, have fun at school, and I'll see you soon.